Hey guys, Katherine here. Today I have 5 ways to make your family's diet better for the environment. Hope you enjoy! How we eat has a huge impact on the environment. Overall, the food production industry accounts for 30% of global greenhouse gas emissions. It occupies about 40% of global land, and it uses about 70% of our world's freshwater resources. Actually, it is the largest factor that threatens species with extinction. So the way we eat is hugely impactful in our environment. Luckily, there are changes that you can make to you and your family's diet that can help reduce this impact on the environment. Tip number 1, reduce the amount of red meat, especially beef, in your diet. Did you know that the livestock industry covers 1/3 of the world's total land and 2/3 of our agricultural land? In recent years, the increased demand for livestock has actually been the main cause of deforestation. Out of the 30% of global greenhouse gas emissions produced by the food industry, almost half of those emissions come directly from the livestock sector. So, needless to say, the livestock industry makes a huge impact on our environment. So, if you can reduce your personal consumption, you could actually do a lot to help the environment. Tip number 2, reduce the amount of dairy in your diet. So, as you may have figured out, beef is not the only product created by livestock. There's also dairy, so naturally reducing dairy is another important way that you can make your diet more environmentally friendly. But don't worry, you don't have to cut out milk and other dairy products like ice cream entirely. But you should try to be a little bit smarter about what kinds of dairy products you actually do purchase. For example, try to buy organic milk. This is because the farms that produce organic milk actually use either a very small amount or no synthetic pesticides or fertilizers that could be harmful for the environment. Also, if possible, opt for lower fat milks. This is because lower fat milks are actually more environmentally efficient, because the fat that is skimmed off from those milks can be used to produce other products, for example, heavy cream. Tip number 3, buy local, but not always. One of the major parts of the food industry is transportation. A lot of the food that we eat is not grown in Ontario. We have to transport it from other places, for example, California. Now, the emissions and the air pollution created by transporting food, whether it be by an airplane, by a truck, by a train, or even by boat, can actually cause a lot of damage to the environment via air pollution. So, if possible, it can be really beneficial for the environment to buy food that is produced locally, because that means that the transportation part of the process is eliminated or is reduced, and that will overall lower the carbon footprint of your diet. So, having said that, you need to be careful about what foods you're buying locally. And this is because although transportation is an important source of pollution, it actually only accounts for about 4% of the total greenhouse gas emissions created by the food industry. Far more important is production, and this causes about 80% of the emissions. And so sometimes what will happen is that local farmers will grow certain crops that are not actually natural to their location. And so what that means is they have to compensate for these non-ideal soil or temperature conditions. And this can actually end up being worse for the environment and create more pollution than it would to simply transport the food from somewhere where it grows naturally. So when you're buying locally, you want to make sure that you're also buying foods that are in season, i.e. not grown in a greenhouse. And you can find out what foods are in season by checking the Foodland website. Tip number 4, increase the amount of plant-based protein in your diet. So if you're cutting out or reducing red meat in your diet, you're going to need to find another source of protein. Luckily, there are many plant-based options that can help you supplement the protein lost by the reduced amount of red meat or just plain meat in your diet. So there's foods like tofu, whole grain bread, broccoli, oats, lentils that are all rich in protein. Don't worry, you will not have to sacrifice any nutrition if you choose to take the environmentally friendly step of reducing the amount of meat in your diet. Tip number 5. Last but not least, try to eat a variety of foods. Today, our diets are much too narrow. Historically, more than 6,000 different crops have been used as food sources. Today, fewer than 200. And of those 200, only 9 account for about 70% of our food supply. And this is really dangerous because if one of these crops were to be infected by some kind of disease or fall victim to some kind of pest, then our food supply would be seriously endangered. So, by eating a more balanced diet and consuming a variety of foods, not only will you be enriching your own experience and your own diet, you'll also be helping to create a safer food environment for the entire globe. Alright guys, that is the end of my 5 tips for you to make your diet better for the environment. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope that you will try out, if not all, at least a few of these tips. Thanks, bye!